Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So Memories of Chaos has been a little bit of a hot topic in terms of HP inflation and power creep, and I'll be showing in this video explaining how enemy HP in Memories of Chaos works, how bad the power creep is using easy to understand scale, and if it's really that bad considering other factors in the game. I would like to thank Echo of Kaching Mains as he provided very insightful math that makes up most of this video. So first of all, how do the devs manipulate enemy HP? Every single mob has a base HP multiplied by a scaling factor. Scaling factor is determined by the enemy level and a mysterious variable that Hoyo uses to scale them in Memories of Chaos. This is why same level mobs in the overworld may not render the same HP in Memories of Chaos or even Simulated Universe. For the sake of this video, base HP will be called a unit of HP. Using different types of enemies of the current MOC, here's the total HP of each enemy. To solve how many units of HP each enemy has, we do this formula. The solution for this case is x equals 10, y equals 12, and z equals 2, where the numerators all equal a similar number with an error of rounding. This means the Arumaton has 10 units of 62,848 HP, Mech Borisin has 12 units, and the Fodder Wolves are 2 units of HP. Taking this into account, fodder enemies have a range of 1 to 2 units of HP, standard elites have 10 to 12 units of HP, and big bosses like Aventurine and Hule have 25 units of HP with 2 lives. Sam has 1 life of 50 units. Now that we know what each enemy's unit of HP is, we can determine the control variable that Hoyo controls to increase HP. A 12-unit elite in 2.6 current Memories of Chaos has 754,000 HP, amounting to 62,848 per unit of HP. A 12U elite before the current MOC has 628,000 HP, amounting to 52,000 per unit. A 12U elite on 2.4 MOC has 545,000 total HP, amounting to 45,000 per HP unit. A 12U elite on 2.3, 2.2, and 2.1 Memories of Chaos has 503,000 HP, amounting to 41,000 per unit. Lastly, a 12U elite on 2.0 Memories of Chaos has 389,000 HP, amounting to 30k HP per HP unit. Compiling all of this is the rate of growth from each MOC compared to the previous. If you don't understand what this means, here's some statistics per scale. Since MOC 2.3, which was Firefly and Jade's release, HP has increased by 50%. Since Memories of Chaos 2.0, which was Sparkle and Black Swan's banners, HP has increased by 93%. There is no two ways about this. MOC HP has drastically increased over the span of 1 year, and almost any clear time of teams released on 2.0 has, in theory, doubled. For reference, here's Genshin Impact's total HP scale in Abyss. While there are margins of error and variables such as DPS windows for enemies like the Setek Weenut, Genshin's HP spike in 4.0 to 5.0 is 51% Memories of Chaos. MOC almost doubled it if Svarog didn't receive an HP nerf. You can even go back to 3.0, which was 2 years of power creep in Genshin, and it still didn't beat honkaistarrail. However, like we all say in this channel, there is external factors that can cushion this or make it feel worse. First is the blessings. Turbulences are very good at pushing certain archetypes to act as a buffer and make you believe that some teams are better than others without directly manipulating their HP. This Memories of Chaos specifically has quite a weak turbulence and is an active spike to low cycle since it's one that gets a lot stronger over cycles. So the gap between a zero cycler and a non-zero cycler is a bit higher in this case because the turbulence has a ramp-up time, while some blessings like Trotters are immediately given without passing a cycle. Second is the enemy mechanics. This one is a big deal. Some bosses are noticeably easier to exploit and pushes mechanics to give you more DPS or less DPS. Yes, Sam has 50 units of HP, but she drains a lot of her HP. Aventurine has a lot of HP, but Gamble allows you to spam very strong ultimates like Acheron. He's a much more technical boss that to some players, Aventurine feels like he has more HP, since Aventurine can dodge a turbulence if you play the fight wrong, which can be massive. Ule feels thicker because he pushes you to run a sustain and make decisions that decrease team DPS. The current banana bosses give you a lot of free energy, skill points, and team-wide action forward if you time it correctly. A lot of bosses, in fact almost all of them, in some way give you bonuses that cannot be replicated in every team and every calc that can give you a 100% precise HP ballpark. Third is elements. Even if we consider HP, a boss can be much worse or better in practice if they possess the right element. Ice Weakness has less contenders of good DPS options than let's say Fire DPS, and it feels much worse. Imaginary has more contenders than Quantum DPS. On top of res for elements to shut down some units, this can skew the perception of enemy HP. Lastly is enemy count. 50 units of HP to a single target is not the same as 10 units of HP to 5 targets, simply because more characters are blast or AoE that they can efficiently instantly shred away enemy HP than pure single target who have less damage dealers. If a blast unit attacks with 2 units of HP to one target and 1 to adjacent enemies, a hunt unit will have to do 4 units to one target to match that. Put it in a one target scenario and 1 is suddenly vastly superior. And some people might not just have those units because there are twice more AoE units than there are single target units. Therefore, it's a matter of how many damage dealers and how strong they are at a certain enemy count. And I feel that now is a good time to answer the elephant in the room. How is our DPS catching up to this power creep? As mentioned earlier, some factors of how bosses and enemy count can be is how good the characters are and how many of them are good. Even bigger question is how we are growing in pure numbers compared to the enemy. Quite frankly, there's so many teams that I can't even cheat half of them that were released since 2.0. So the best that I could do is show you each of the exemplary best teams, each patch, and their overall damage using Asagi. Again, so I don't have to say this a few thousand times, Asagi and in general calcs are not perfect, so take this with a huge grain of salt. Consult other sources, please. This is a free test scenario of a neutral 3 targets on the field, every weakness type the enemy is weak to. And on each patch, I added a comparison to the 2 best teams around that time according to Asagi. All 5 stars are at E0S1, except for Bronya and Sparkle who's using S5 DDD for more DPS, and all 4 stars are at E6. I didn't put time traveling relics for realism. I want to let you guys know before proceeding that I myself am a free-to-play player, and this MOC took less attempts than Hule and I had Butil. My only E0S1s are Aventurine and Acheron, and it would have been better if I had Jiao Cho instead of Aventurine signature LC, so this was a complete shock to me that people think this was worse than Hule. And unfortunately, that's a roster issue. You may not have had the right answers for this boss, but not for Hule. This test being a bit highly invested compared to free-to-play players is simply an equalizer. As you can see, the cumulative growth of power on our side is around 15% off the enemy's HP growth, which is close enough to a 10% margin of error, and even closer if you consider turbulences a 20% variance. You can pretty much say that, at least according to just one source, I will continue to drill that into your head, yes, our units are catching up in terms of releases, because this has happened before. The important benchmarks from this data are 2.1 and 2.6. In these patches, the HP of the enemy was higher in growth than the power of the player being given an upgrade. And I specifically remember in 2.1 that Aventurine and the dinosaurs were a big pain and a lot of people felt that they were a bit too tanky. After this, they released Harmony MC, which evened out the HP increase of the boss and the DPS increase of the player, and MOC had a lot of zero cyclers because it refused to catch up with our DPS output for a few patches. Hule got some people to notice because for the first time since HP stagnated, Hule's HP increase was higher than the DPS increase of what came on that patch. But it wasn't as bad since the enemy was playing catch up. It seems we are simply repeating the pattern. We've finally had a patch where our damage dealers haven't caught up yet, and on 2.7 we will somewhat catch up with this with Fugue on Rappa's part, and the release of Remembrance MC on 3.0 leads me to believe that we will have an HP spike on 2.7 again, and a straight flatline on 3.0 to make Remembrance feel better. Since Varog received the live HP nerf, I can't trust leaks on 2.7 to cover on this video, and it seems that Turbulence is much easier there. Before closing this segment off, again I want to remind you that this is one source and it's not perfect. Calcs aren't everything, as I explained in the Jiao Cho theorem. It provides a good enough guide, so please be careful using this and cross-check with other sources. So judging from this video, do I think doom posting is warranted for this HP increase? I've said it many times and I'm afraid to disappoint you, it's not worth doom posting over. Sure, the optics of 93% health increase looks bad, but if you're a new player, you can pull new tools next patch that can catch up to the HP spike. I think the biggest reason people are mad is that they can't just sit on their resources forever. I think what a lot of people that say Genshin could never doesn't understand is that honkaistarrail gives you a lot more free pulls because you need to be more aggressive on pulling on HSR than in Genshin. And the thing is, it's likely we will face another lull period like in 2.1 to 2.3 where the HP just doesn't increase. We are currently in high tide and sooner or later they're gonna have to low tide to keep the game sustainable. I don't want to fill you with doom posting because it doesn't really help anybody, it only really makes you feel miserable. But I don't want to lie about reality either. This is a predatory gacha game, and while Starrail is nicer about power creep in general, characters are just bound to be benched at some point for the best interest of the devs. I'm seeing a lot of 4-star only runners starting to waver and want to quit for the HP spike, which is perfectly understandable. Because honkaistarrail doesn't release much 4 stars at all, 4-star only runs depend a lot on 1.0 4 stars, since 1.0 has almost half the 4-star roster, and it's been almost 2 years since 1.0. It's gonna come a point where it's impossible to just do it if they slack off on releasing 4 stars. 3 4 stars per planet is barely enough to make a team, and I hope they release more on Amphorius. And hopefully they find some way to revive old characters, like Jingyuan with a Sunday is a very good move, otherwise reruns are shooting themselves in the foot. Rerunning Blade isn't gonna give them money if they don't don't have a new blade support, and he just becomes a waste of space. But again, this is just the natural order of things. I want to remind people that 1.0 didn't even have MOC 10, so the HP spike there was a lot worse. 2.0 to 3.0 is a lot more manageable just on that fact alone. And honestly, a lot of the criticism comes from zero cyclers who have gotten complacent to the HP not increasing. This is absolutely normal in the gacha space. In fact, probably not aggressive enough. And it really isn't that big of a deal if you can't zero cycle. Actually, I think as a game designer, there's something wrong about the game if you could zero cycle. It's time to let go of some of your favorite 1.0 characters. Just give them a rest. You'll find more characters to like someday, and maybe those characters will make your favorite feel good again. It's fine to feel sad about it, but doom posting about it doesn't help anybody, and it's not the right way to cope with it. Anyway, that's all for my thoughts on the power creep, and I hope you learned something watching this video. Share it all around if you want to spread this knowledge, and yeah, I'll see you later on Friday, I think. Bye.